Good morning and welcome to another brainstorm session. And this is day 2. I tried this yesterday on December 26th, and now it is December 27th. This is day 2, and I wrote this and it feels imbalanced because of the distance here is not the same as it is here. This is what I call my brainstorm pad. I like the dotted the dots there. It helps me in measuring. I have different lined notebooks, depends on what I do with it, and I by default prefer something that is clear with no lines or dots, like a sketch pad, even for my journals. And this one, I have decided that I like this for brainstorming, mind map, creating charts, and creating something for brainstorming. So this is now my brainstorm pad or idea pad. And so I mentioned about this part. I wrote with ink, so it's hard you can't erase it. What I'm gonna do to compensate for this error in the alignment is to add something here. Let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dots. From here, let's begin from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So to balance this out, I'm going to make something. I was thinking just a simple dot, but actually I will go ahead with the dot that I thought of. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's put day 2. And today is December 27. And I think I'll leave it like that. Okay, this is impromptu, just like what I did yesterday, and I had a flow of ideas, and that's very good. I think all of us ought to have flow and also a time to rest. So I always think in terms of flow and rest, which is also the ebb and flow. This is very important for every creator. And I believe that all of us, we're all creators. Some of us are strong in the thinking, and some are strong in the doing. Those who are thinking, they pause before and after. Before they do something, they think about it and they review after they've done something. Those who are strong in the doing, they are able to act on a thought, or how do I say this that because this is positive. How do I say this? That because what's not good is when you act without thinking, but actually it's not entirely bad, because when you've done the thinking before, you can focus on the doing and then you review it after. I think the mistake, first of all, is when a person is only doing without thinking, and when a person is only thinking without doing. But some of us have natural flow, naturally in the flow, and those who are natural in the ebb. Both are important, and the saddest thing that could happen is when you're not able to produce anything, because I don't know, you will hear a lot of things that will champion one or the other and vilify one or the other. For me, coming from the thinking, I call myself a recovering perfectionist. And in the last couple of years, I have focused on the business side as a freelancer and eventually as an independent business owner, because at that point I have seen that I have the technical proficiency or technical know-how in the creative side, in the art and design side. But if I want to be more established independently as an individual, or like own a business, something like that, then I would have to know the business side of things. When you're a professional, you get paid for what you do. And if I'm doing well on the creative side, then it will help me grow to know also the getting paid side, because both are important when you reach the level of a professional. And I've learned a lot from entrepreneurs and learning more about business in general. And growing up, what I've observed is that there is always a emphasis in the doing, and this is very important. If you think a lot without doing, you can say about what you think, and that is doing. So I want to go ahead and jump into this thing that I really want to talk about, which is how I have a methodology or a process for any kind of work that I do related to art and design. So this works for me every time. This is pre-production and this is post-production. So, as a trained multimedia artist and designer, I've gained experience in a wide spectrum, I should say. I graduated as a multimedia artist, and I've held positions as a multimedia designer, and I call this multidisciplinary. In my bio or in my profile, I define my profession or occupation or ability as a multidisciplinary artist and designer. And in my portfolio, I have shared the process that works for me every time, which is the pre-production side. Pre-production. Production and post production. So this works for all disciplines, whether it's photography, whether it's producing games, whether it's creating graphic arts for marketing, visual communication. And let's talk about games, because I had solid experience in this. Pre-production, let's say in game development. What would fall under pre-production is concept art. What would fall under production is 2D art production, or 3D art production, which is creating assets, art assets. These are art assets, 2D or 3D. And the post-production is, I relate this more with filmmaking, where they get also there's concept art in filmmaking, and then you produce the art assets that is used in the film, whether it's a live action and or 3D animation, and it's normal to have them mixed, like VFX, visual effects, or special effects. How do you put them together? That is done in the post-production. So you take a footage and then you put them together and then color, do those colors. In the post-production stage for game development, how does that look like? Because when I worked in creating art production, we send the art assets to these big companies like EA, Naughty Dog, Ubisoft, and Disney, and they have their own in-house, or I don't know if they outsource it, they have their own game engine that they work with. Could be proprietary or something like Unreal or Unity, or something else like I don't know, what do you call it, Crytek or something. So the post-production would go in, I'm guessing this part, but for me in the filmmaking this is clear, because it's also the same in architectural visualization, where you produce the asset, the 3D model, and then you texture it. That's part of the art production, and then you put it together in the engine, because we're talking about game development. In the game engine, and this is where I am smart guessing this part, because game engine is like Unreal and stuff like that, and it's not so different with like Blender or yeah, because Blender has its own post production features, but something like Godot or Unreal, let's write them. Godot, Unreal, and Unity. So you bring the art assets together, and then you set the lighting in that in the game engine. And so this is what I would lighting, something like that. And there are different performances, different technical requirements for different game engines when after you've created the art assets and you bring them together. And it includes the programming for the characters, the environment. It's very technical. So this is where the developers or programmers put together the whole scene and make them move with the animation and stuff like that. So it's an army. It's a group of people who are working on this. And you can make your own game with one person if you have all the time and the resources, and you have to be smart to work on this time-wise, and also it's achievable, and many indie game creators and game developers have done it. Okay, so the pre-production, production, post-production. How does that look like in graphic design, for example? And if we talk about graphic design or multimedia design, this is a higher level because multimedia design, there's graphic design in it, and I want to tackle marketing. Or visual communications. When you talk about visual communications, that is also marketing. Okay, I'm going to start writing also keywords, packaging. I'm going to go right into the gist or the bottom line that I want to say. So, how does this work for different types of design work or art work? When you have an idea, you execute, you create the product, and then market the product. Marketing. So you'll see how this is also pre-production, production, and post-production. This gets the bulk of the work, and it takes time. And of course, if you have people working with you, either one develops the idea and the other focuses on the production, the other one is taking care of the production. So at least 3 people to have a team, or it can be 2 people or 1 person. And how does 1 person do this? As a multimedia designer and an independent business owner, there is a way and is very raw, and I think other people already know this or doing it. People who are leaders, or what do you call this? Thought leaders, okay? How do they package, right? How do they package their ideas and thoughts? They go package the idea into words and then work with post-production or market the idea. Ideas are packaged into words and they market it by sharing it to, let's say, social media. So it's what I'm doing right now. And concept art are also used in marketing. There was a time it was a problem that young students or fresh grads who were getting into concept art had this impossible or very high standard of concept art, because what they see is concept art that has been post-produced. So concept art that underwent post-processing. And this is what they were exposed to when they see art books or concept art it's polished concept art. But the actual concept arts are not that polished, as long as it gets the job done according to its purpose, which is communicate the idea. The people in the production will be able to take it and use their imagination they can imagine it because they know how to create it. They can relate with the whole process. And so they don't need it to be too much polished, because they take it and then they produce the art asset based on those ideas. That's why there are, let's say, characters that are not well drawn, and then they take this, so character design, and then they put labels in it, and then they get a character designer. Or how do you do it when you're only one person, right? I created when I have ideas, as long as I have a clear picture in my mind, what helps is to go right ahead and start producing it, start drawing it, start painting it. And so I have a picture in my mind that I make. And then I'm able to compare that because I'm working only with myself. So what I'm practicing is from my mind to my hands. So the execution part. That's the thing as an artist. You have to learn how to execute ideas. Everyone has ideas. When you go to an art class, everyone has had ideas that they try to execute through painting. And what you're learning is actually techniques, principles, design principles, and art techniques. So the fastest way to learn a technique is to have to follow according to what the teacher, how they're teaching it. Because if there's resistance, it's like creating walls and things like that. In order to have a seamless growth when learning, you have to free your mind. Don't resist it, but be accepting and ask questions. Even if something is fuzzy, and then execute according to how they see it. So the technical, that's in the mind. Other technical obstacles or challenges for the person is when the teacher says, okay, you need this pencil and you need this paper, right? And the reason why people ask, what's the brand that you use, what's the pen that you use, is because as close as you can get to how they're teaching it, what they're showing you, it will help the student learn fast if they have the same they work with the same materials, the closest that they could copy what you're doing. That is helping in the seamless transmission of the techniques or the idea or concepts that you're learning. So there are many other factors that can be discussed and looked into when it comes to education or transmission of ideas. But that's one that I can emphasize. And so as much as you can eliminate these obstacles, the better it is. And that's why I believe so much in the parent-child and child education. Because the child is naturally trusting the parent. There is a seamless transmission to the child. These are the cups that I mentioned, the interest of the child. And to a child, the world is open. So, and ideas flow. Ideas are, okay, in the world of a child, it's like getting into a 3D software where virtually there are no walls, it's infinite. If you turn off the grid in 3D, let's say Blender, which is a 3D software, for the child, it's empty. When you open Blender, there's a cube, but the cube would be the child. If you take it out, that's what the child sees. Nothing. And so the role of the parent is to understand the world through rules, through structures, through frameworks, and from the things that they're learning from the parent, they see a house because this is the home. There's walls, there's windows, there's doors, 4 walls and a roof. And that helps them understand the world better. So having a framework, and so they don't have that problem when you transmit idea transmission, which is really education. So I mentioned this in the brainstorm session yesterday, which is let's look. The interest and how each person, even if they have a different career or different expertise, have different level of acceptance and appreciation for design. And this is why when a child has been fed negative thoughts or a negative perception when it comes to design, they kind of have this negative file, or they were programmed to think that way. And because it's parent-child, it's their world, it's their shape. And so as they grow, they push, they have their own designs, they learn from other people. So if I'm not a parent of this child or this student, then it takes trust. Either you build trust in the mind of the student, or the student will learn to trust you. And it's really the same way with clients when you work as a professional in business. It's the trust that we all need to work on. And as long as you eliminate any obstacles, you really have to work on that, because it's really both ways. Because for me, for example, as a designer, you have to nurture or build trust and rapport to the mind of the client. It's both ways, it works both ways. And that's what I'm gonna end with for today. I hope that this will provide some insights for anyone who will hear this and watch. Okay, that's it for today.